Adorable pups being born is usually an exciting and memorable event. This specific encounter was even more noteworthy. When the Sutherland family discovered what their golden retriever Rio had given birth to, Hulk, they were taken aback. Let's speak about another story that is as wonderful and extremely comparable before we get to the actual one. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. The Stamies were dog lovers. One of their closest companions and finest protectors was their German shepherd, Gypsy. It was also the ideal companion. The entire family and the community adored the dog, and now that Gypsy was expecting, things would get much better. There will be more animal companions to play and snuggle with soon. Gypsy's stomach continued to swell. The family became more and more enthusiastic as it grew. They were eager to see how many pups there would be and what kind of tiny ones they would have. The family was well prepared for this momentous occasion. Although they were unsure of when this day would arrive, they took care to be ready. Gypsy was about to give birth to the young ones. And sure enough, Gypsy gave birth one day. The entire family was ecstatic. Although they were a little anxious as well, things will probably work out. The health of the mother, Gypsy, and all the puppies was the most crucial factor. The work proceeded quickly and easily. Before they knew it, a junior Gypsy emerged. It was adorable and very little. It appeared both thrilled and afraid at the same time, and its eyes weren't fully opened. Its fur had a lovely beige color. Subsequently, a third one arrived shortly after the first, all of them as adorable and beautiful. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Naturally, the puppies all looked really cute and appeared to be in good condition. The proprietor, Shanna Stamey, remained in the role of a doula as her kids ran around and interacted with the cuddly babies. Next, there was a fourth puppy born. The family was stunned now. This one had a very different appearance. Actually, this puppy's appearance set it apart from all other dogs. They had to blink a few times to confirm that what they were seeing was true, as they were in disbelief. Green was the hue of the fourth dog, which was as adorable but very different. How could that be true? How could the puppy be so green and soiled when it had just been taken from its mother? For everyone, it just didn't make sense. What transpired within the mother's womb? This was alarming. The hue was obvious, so they couldn't be insane. It was lime green, not even light or dark green. The dog had a lime-like glow about it. Apart from the startling hue, everything else appeared to be quite normal. Still, the green puppy wasn't the final one. There were more pups born into this world immediately after that. Gypsy gave birth to 8 gorgeous and lovely puppies in under 3 hours. A few of them were beige, a few were black, and there was, of course, the green one. They needed to investigate the green one's situation now. It was also a very restless one. The family named it Hulk because of its restlessness and lime hue, which is a really fitting moniker in my opinion. Each puppy rests in its own sac within its mother's uterus during the pregnancy. There is fluid in this sac. The presence of meconium in the sac may even cause the puppy's color to change. Though it is extremely uncommon, it does occur, and Hulk was undoubtedly one of the victims. By the look of its colorful fur, there seemed to be a lot of meconium in that sac. Even the animals may be in risk from this. Meconium overuse can have negative health effects. Thankfully, Hulk appeared to be in excellent condition, and that was not the case. It appeared to be wearing a contemporary neon jacket. Green puppies, nevertheless, will not stay green. The puppy will eventually take on their sibling's color after some time, a few licks from its mother, and 2 full washes. Eventually, Hulk become entirely beige. The puppies are all doing really well. Gypsy's first litter is this one. Gypsy is now doing her part as a mother. Every single puppy is loved by the Stamey family. The family is also liked by the pets. While they still have the opportunity, they spend a lot of time together. The puppies will be adopted by more devoted family when they are a little older. Even though he now has the same hue as all of the siblings, Hulk is already rather well liked. It is also referred to as their lucky charm by Shanna Stamey. Fortunately, every one of the stunning puppies was sound. Rio's tale is told here. Like many other dogs, Rio was a golden retriever with gorgeous velvety fur. As we've seen previously, dogs have gorgeous fur that comes in a variety of hues. Rio was expecting her first child, a furry little bundle of joy. The family, who resided in Dramui, a town in Scotland, was ecstatic. They were excited to meet some Rio Juniors and cherish their 3-year-old dog, Rio. They would most likely even seem cuter than their mother. Louise Sutherland, the owner, 43, had done extensive study and was prepared to accept the young puppies. Claire, her 25-year-old daughter, was ready and willing to assist her mother as required. They observed an abrupt change in Rio's behavior on July 7th. She was due to give birth shortly. The family was excited and a little scared at the same moment. At last, they would get to see the little puppies. But the work was not an easy one. It wasn't a speedy birth either, unlike the one we witnessed in the preceding narrative. Rio ultimately gave birth to a couple of cute puppy dogs. They had the prettiest features and brilliant beige fur, and they appeared to be lost in their surroundings. Nothing compares to adorable newborn pups. Rio had given birth to 4 adorable puppies by now. It appeared like the massive dog celebration was far from ended even after hours had passed. Undoubtedly, there were more puppies within, eager to explore a whole new world. They dedicated their entire day to this task. It was now assumed that there would be a 5th pup and probably more. With the help of her daughter Claire, Louise readied herself once more, and they were overjoyed to greet the 5th puppy. The golden retriever kept giving birth to more puppies, but this was something else entirely, and its owner was taken aback. This one had a very different appearance. They were becoming concerned since they had never seen a puppy like that. Unbelievably, the 6th puppy was green. Another green puppy, similar to the one from the Hulk story. It seems sense that this family was equally shocked. Who wouldn't be? Do you have any prior knowledge of green puppies? Many individuals, I'm sure, haven't heard these stories. They were unable to comprehend how or why. It took them many checks to confirm that this was indeed happening. The pup's fur appeared to be exclusively green in hue. The fur itself was indeed green. This was alarming. They had never seen or even heard of a dog with green fur. Louise phoned the veterinarian right away to inquire about this green problem. She had to move quickly since the dog may be in danger. The veterinarian was as perplexed as she was when she described it to him. He was as confused as I was about what was happening. That didn't help, though. It simply made everything weirder. How would the veterinarian determine the condition if they had no idea what to do with this problem? Louise was worn out. She'd spent the entire day concentrating on the work, and now she was faced with this problem that she was unable to solve. Worried and exhausted, she had to concentrate on the remaining labor. Thankfully, Claire, her daughter, occasionally took over, so Louise could take a brief break. Meanwhile, yet another day began. The next day had arrived and the work had not yet been completed. The green pup was followed by a 6th pup. Thankfully, this one didn't have the startling hue of the previous one. The puppies numbered 7, 8, and 9 were born later. It turned out that everyone was the more traditional shade of beige. It was just the 7th puppy to have the hue of a gorgeous summertime tree. The celebration appeared to be finished after a 36-hour labor. Mother and the 9 puppies were contentedly savoring one another's company. Prior to conducting any study on the green puppy, Dr. Louise made the decision to take a short break. Thank God it came out later that the small green ball was healthy. That was the primary concern. As long as the puppy was healthy, its color may have been any hue. The placenta's excessive exposure caused the puppy to tint green, giving it this appearance. Furthermore, given how uncommon this occurrence is, it is hardly shocking that the veterinarian knew very little about it either. The puppy has also been named Forest, which seems fitting. The apple green hue eventually subsided, and the puppy blended in nicely with the siblings. The family will have to choose which of the pups to retain in a few weeks, since they won't be able to keep all of them. In addition to Rio, the 12-year-old golden retriever, the Sutherlands also own 12-year-old Memphis. Rio's second litter is this one. Rio is certainly skilled at keeping her owners occupied and taken aback. Amazing. Right when you feel like you've heard everything, we sincerely hope you have delighted in these tales of exceptionally unique puppies, green puppies. The fact that every puppy, even the beige, black, and green ones, is doing well makes us delighted. They undoubtedly made the owner's experience one to remember. The news has covered their tales extensively. If you encountered a green puppy for the first time, how would you respond? Would you have the same level of astonishment as these owners? Please share it with us in the comments section. We'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. Thank you for seeing, and I hope to see you again soon with another incredible tale. Greetings, pals! Nobody has time for their loved ones in this day and age. The majority of the time, our jobs consume all of our time, leaving us with little time for ourselves, much less others. However, as parents are the ones whose footprints their children follow, children need extra care from them as they grow up. But with their hectic schedules, parents are forced to entrust their children's education to the school still. Would that help them become better individuals on their own? Generally speaking, the response would be no. The work has been harder when devices and games were invented. However, what if parents themselves did nothing to discipline their children when they misbehave, particularly in public? When that occurs, some other individuals step forward to teach them basic etiquette, and things usually don't work out. An analogous occurrence occurred when a child appeared to disregard social graces in a public setting, and the onlookers were not inclined to overlook it. They ensured he had a lesson to take home. On a typical November morning, commuters hurried through the metro system in order to catch their trains. Mondays were usually the busiest day of the week, when thousands of people went to work and others returned home from the weekend. In New York, it feels like Monday mornings at the stations are the same every day. Many people would rather commute on their own instead of taking the train since they have to share seats with strangers. However, not everyone on the earth can afford this luxury, leaving them with no option than to use public transportation. They will so undoubtedly encounter a range of individuals on board, some of whom will be hospitable and others of whom may irritate us. Most of the time, the New York subway is still very crowded. People were entering and leaving the trains that day as normal, and if they had been able to find a spot to stand inside the train, that would have been an accomplishment. A child boarded at a certain station with his mother. People handed them their seats out of civility when they saw a mom with a child. The child's mother, who was meant to be his guardian, accepted the seat next to him without expressing gratitude to the individuals who had offered them. They became lost in their phones as soon as the train started. People were shocked to see them since they hadn't anticipated such behavior. But soon enough, though, everything returned to normal when the train departed and a large number of new passengers aboard. The child's seat next to him also went empty. The child swung around, put his feet on the bench, and became absorbed in his phone since he was so unaware of the outside world. The most horrifying part was that his mother stayed silent and continued to stare at her phone. Despite the fact that everyone was engrossed on their phones, a woman sat in front of the child and observed everything quietly. She considered giving the child a lesson on multiple occasions, but she was unable to come up with a plan. She even considered posting the child's picture online, figuring that because most users are active there, it would serve as a good lesson for the pampered brat. It was undoubtedly a fantastic concept, but she eventually gave up on it after worrying that she would face legal action for snapping pictures of someone else without their permission. Just then, someone moved to stand in front of the child, obstructing the woman's vision, and waited for the child to give him the seat. Would the child care to look at him or continue to disregard everything around him? The boy's shoes were completely coated in mud, so the dad was afraid to sit on a filthy seat. However, he also felt fortunate to have found a seat because he still had a long distance to go and would find it challenging to walk with a big luggage in his hands. After weighing the benefits and drawbacks of the seat, he decided to take it before anybody else. The woman seated in front of them assumed that now that the guy had arrived to take a seat, the youngster would have to force himself to sit up straight. She was first content, but now that she had nothing to post on social media and more followers, she became a bit agitated. Like many others, she buried her head in her phone. The father calmly stood in front of the child, awaiting him to step aside and allow him some room, but the irresponsible child ignored him and continued to play on his phone. Shocked by his actions, he considered letting the youngster know at last that he was waiting for him to clear some space by expressing it aloud. Would it help him get into his seat ahead of time? He screamed out loudly to the youngster to get him to look at him, but the lad only gave him a disapproving look and kept looking at his phone. The man was furious about this and ready to take a seat, but before he could respond to the impoliteness of the situation, he noticed a seat close was emptying, so he hurried to take it while muttering complaints to himself. The child acted and looked unfazed by what had transpired. Lifting her head, the woman observed the event with intense focus. She observed her calmly, now interested to see how the guardian would respond. She was shocked that the guardian kept staring at her phone without saying anything about her son's actions. The train came to a stop, then resumed its onward motion, and the woman thought how she would share this news on social media. She began writing about the experience in silence as additional people entered the train, not realizing that it would happen again and that it would be intolerable this time. An elderly guy moved among the crowd as others in the metro started looking for seats. He turned to head in that direction after catching sight of the seat the small child was occupying. Like the guy before him, he stood in front of the youngster and waited for him to move. The woman seated in front of them couldn't help but notice the boy's repeated actions and got up from her seat to give it to the elderly guy. She was incensed not just by the boy's ignorance but also by the mother's response, which made her feel betrayed. She had to take action. She couldn't merely ponder what to post on her social media accounts. With his head once again buried in his phone, the youngster gave her a sidelong glance before acting as though nothing had occurred. People were not only irritated by this episode, but they were also incensed. The boy was with an adult who ought to have known basic manners. If the child had been left alone, people would have dismissed him as a spoilt brat with no manners. She had a responsibility to teach the youngster proper behavior, even if he regarded it lightly. The elderly guy turned his back on the youngster after thanking the woman for her kindness. Obviously, the way the youngster was acting was infuriating a lot of people. It had become imperative now to impart to the little child a lesson he would never forget. The youngster had gone too far, and the mom wondered what she could do. The child was sitting on the seat, spreading his legs wide and oblivious to his surroundings when she snapped his picture. She had written a lengthy piece on the misbehaving child and was revising it when she noticed someone approaching the seat. Despite her déjà vu, she attempted to focus on her phone. Was her gut feeling correct? She saw something just as she was ready to share the news on social media. The man who had just boarded the train didn't look like the other passengers. With his naturally blonde hair and his hefty stature, he gave off the impression that he had just graduated from Hogwarts. He looked like the pop sensation of the 1990s, Elton John. He stood for a time too, but he had no intention of getting up from the seat. Even after the father ordered him to move, the youngster remained still, but he didn't appear to be upset or irritated as most people might. The woman became inquisitive and put down her pen for a bit, waiting to see what the man would do next. The woman didn't know her camera angle would make news, but something prompted her do it. The father did something that was unimaginable, or at least not realistic, when the little child rejected his request. He just sat at the boy's feet, acting as though he was unwilling to give up his seat to a rude and impolite child. With all eyes fixed on the man, everyone was stunned by what they had just witnessed. The woman was in shock at what she had just managed to photograph. The child was shocked as well, as he had not anticipated this to occur, along with everyone else in the area. His mother was untouched by the tragedy. Thus, this wasn't the only shock for the public. She didn't say anything to the man for sitting on her child's feet, and she didn't correct her child for sitting incorrectly either. She had the least awareness that others were seeing them and were taken aback by her actions. The man got up again to reposition and was going to sit on his legs again, which surprised the child even more. The child attempted to drag his legs out from under him. As if that weren't enough, both the child and those in their immediate vicinity were taken aback by his mother's remarks. It seems that the woman, named Isabel, said, "I missed my stop because of you, Joe," as she recorded everything and posted it on Twitter. Since this was the last thing the child was expecting from mom at this particular moment, he was unable to believe what he had just heard. Not only was this amusing incident shared online, but the child also received a lot of cruel trolling. The child, subsequently identified as Joe, was horrified by what had transpired and remained frozen in place on his seat, still in shock and unsure of who to gaze at. He had become a Twitter meme while he was still processing what had just transpired. He was the target of vicious trolling for his annoying actions, and some even referred to this as an attack. The program was a huge hit, and people cheered for the man's return. By Friday afternoon, the video had reportedly been shared 12,000 times, propelling the stranger to extreme fame. Not every hero has a cape on. Lucky Turner shared a message. Hired divas described it as a assault, but totally worth it, while a well-known actress stated that subway etiquette is best taught non-verbally with force. The child seems to have finally learned his lesson. This child was definitely not like any other child. Most would have been ashamed of what had happened and would never have considered getting into such trouble again. It seems that he was born obstinate. Thus, rather than feeling regret for his actions, this infamous child cursed the passenger as his mother grabbed his hand and pulled him from the train. Even if the incident was forgotten after a day or two, social media helped spread the word across borders and beyond. Not only were t-shirts manufactured from the incident that included the adorable expression of the child, but others also generated hilarious memes about it, leaving no opportunity for mockery of the occurrence. Some saw this as light-hearted entertainment, but others asked the stranger pointed questions. His immature act of sitting on the youngster when he wouldn't step aside infuriated them. They said that this was an attack. Public opinion was split over this occurrence, but who was correct? The person who uploaded the video on Twitter noticed that people's responses split into two groups. A small percentage of individuals, nevertheless, mockingly teased the child and the stranger. Subway etiquette is best taught non-verbally with force, a Twitter user stated. Regardless of the stance taken, the child's response at the conclusion of the trip made it quite evident that he was not in the mood to change his habits. Some may find the episode humorous in the near future, while others may view it as an attack. But who was to blame for the child's misbehavior? It would be unfair to place all the blame on the child because he was just a child and prone to making errors. Every time he made a mistake, the elders had a duty to reprimand him. The child was with his guardian at the time of the occurrence, whom everyone presumed to be his mother. She was the main offender in this activity. The day's events would have been different if she had scolded him when he displayed such conduct before to the incident and taught him appropriate public behavior. Rather, she chose to remain unaware of it. If you've ever taken the subway, particularly in New York, you are aware of how hard it can be to get a seat, let alone breathe. Because the seats may accommodate 3 people each, strangers are aware that if the train is crowded, they will need to share a seat with an unknown rider or alter their seat with more than 3 people. Even with the posters stuck around the train, not everyone is so kind as to give up their seats or adapt for the less fortunate. They appear to have no responsibilities as fellow passengers and are least concerned about the other person. Similar to the child, most guys sloppily occupy seats on trains, obstructing others' space and making it difficult for others to sit. And what could be said about the teenager? Joe was still a little child. The majority of individuals are usually engrossed on their phones or laptops. Without a question, technology has brought people closer together, but it has also turned into an addiction, particularly among younger people. The child also lost any sense of politeness since he was so absorbed in the video game or whatever he was viewing. Without a question, technology has made more options available. Nowadays, everything can be found online, so individuals no longer need to knock on doors in search of employment or school. People can obtain their favorite items with only a click and don't have to drive far to get them. However, it has undoubtedly forced people to stay indoors, as a result of which they seldom ever venture outside to explore. In addition, the institution is becoming a breeding ground for illnesses and other things. Many people lament about broken hearts, various illnesses, and inability to focus. And there's only one monster to blame: technology itself. People are too busy to spend time with their loved ones, and children have lost the ability to obey their elders, which has made them disobedient. However, the issue is, who is in charge of this? In a partnership, nobody wants to put in the work, but everyone expects others to do the same. Additionally, children always require an adult to help them navigate childhood. If not, they are forced into undesirable company, which leads to misbehavior and a lack of manners, just like in Joe's case. Early electronic gadget ownership doesn't usually work out well, so parents have a need to monitor what their children are watching and for how long, even with a hectic schedule. While meeting new people has become easier because to technology, individuals have also become more dependent on it. They frequently pose as someone they are not in order to gain attention from others. and they will stop at nothing to win their approval. And all the impressions vanish as the true face is shown. Just as every coin has two sides, so too does technology. When used properly, it may work marvels, but when misused, it can cause illnesses, broken relationships, and a host of other problems. Which side of the coin we select now is up to us. However, nothing is to blame for the teenager's poor behavior that day. Hopefully, the child will also come to his senses and change his ways. A police officer was shocked to see that a Starbucks barista had branded the coffee cups with the word pig instead of his name after he had ordered beverages for the dispatchers who work with him. But as soon as the incident gained widespread attention, the corporate headquarters addressed the matter and provided an unexpected reaction. An Oklahoma police officer went to a nearby Starbucks and placed a number of sweet drink orders as a thank you for the dispatcher's hard work. When his order was called, he picked up the drink carrier and went back to the station, only to find that the name he had given the barista minutes earlier was missing from his ticket. Johnny O'Maro, the head of police in Kefir, was not pleased to learn about it either. The officer's name was substituted with the word pig in bold form on the beverages. Outraged by the prejudice that one of his officers experienced at the hands of an unknown individual, the chief resorted to social media to bemoan the idea that workers may no longer serve clients without expressing their political views. One of my on-duty cops decided to do something kind for our dispatchers, according to Blue Lives Matter, O'Maro wrote. This is what he gets for being nice. The manager at the Glenpool Starbucks informed O'Maro that they would be happy to replace the coffee with the right label when he contacted to voice his concerns. The chief, however, rejected, subsequently stating that he was too leery of the possible service. Corporate didn't handle the issue until after O'Maro's tirade over it. The chief added, "What bothers me is the complete and utter disrespect for a police officer who is out on patrol in his small town, instead of spending time with his family at home, enjoying a meal and a football game. Please just pour the coffee. Do we really have to express ourselves in order to do something as basic as pouring a very expensive cup of coffee these days?" According to reports, the business expressed regret to O'Maro and said it had started an internal inquiry. Starbucks acknowledged that they had fired the employee after originally suspending them while the inquiry was being conducted. The lady who was fired, nevertheless, has since made her own complaint public. Lola Price, a former Starbucks manager, claims that she was unlawfully fired due to the pig branding, according to Kay. She disputes that the label was printed, saying that a barista inserted the name and the business was just trying to find a scapegoat for what was becoming a disastrous PR situation. "I was terminated from my position because Starbucks was looking for someone to take the blame for this and to save some face from their company." Price, according to her, was a manager at the cafe for 9 months before being abruptly fired. She claimed to the local media that Chief Oma's phone call concerning the label was how she learned about the event. She clarified that she subsequently made an effort to make things right by providing a substitute beverage. They to make it seem like they were right on top of everything, which they are, but they terminated me from my position with no cause, she stated. "I have never experienced any kind of disciplinary action or anything like that. I don't know why they would fire me from my job." Price maintains that she has never had any problems with the corporation and that the company exploited her as a scapegoat to protect the reputation of the brand. The corporate office claims she was responsible for the label's printing, but she insists she had nothing to do with it. Starbucks' Jory Mendez said, "This is completely unacceptable, and we sincerely apologize to the law enforcement officer who experienced this. Additionally, we have apologized to him directly, and we are attempting to get in touch with the police chief in order to convey our regret," claims C2. "The barista has been placed on leave while we look into this incident further. This language is offensive to all law enforcement and is not representative of the deep appreciation we have for police officers who work tirelessly to keep our community safe," said Chief Omar. Later, the worker who had printed the derogatory label apologized to him, saying the term was intended to be humorous. Nevertheless, he refrained from identifying the offender or their role at the cafe. Chief Omar is appreciative of the company's apology and the efforts it has taken to put things right. He does, however, state that he will not be going back to the cafe because he is worried that there could have been more tampering with his order than simply the label. Price continues to insist on her innocence, blaming the incorrectly labeled drink on an unidentified barista. But Starbucks has strengthened its resolve to fire the former manager, raising questions about who may have been engaged in the event. The unexpected friendship that developed between a quiet girl and a donkey who had been rescued from danger shocked everyone. The youngster amazed everyone with an incredible act that she did at one of their shared moments. An abandoned donkey with wounds that had not been attended to was found on a farm. The length of the creature's abandonment and the amount of its misery were yet unknown. Profoundly troubled by the abuse of the donkey, individuals who came across it did not hesitate to seek assistance. Appropriately dubbed Shocks, the donkey was sent to Birmingham's Donkey Sanctuary, a haven for its welfare. This prestigious institution, well known for its dedication to donkey care since 1969, donated its skills in Shocks' rehabilitation. The sanctuary's influence went much beyond national boundaries. It helped these amazing creatures on other continents. Shocks experienced a complete recovery process under the loving care of the sanctuary. At first, the workers at the sanctuary were worried about Shocks because of how long it took for his wounds to heal. Every now and again, moments of unbalance returned, reminding everyone of the donkey's difficult trek. However, anyone who came into contact with this kind animal saw his unflinching optimism despite a difficult history. Like a beaming light, Shocks possessed a contagious joy that warmed everyone he came into contact with. His exceptional bond with a little girl named Amber Orswick was the purest embodiment of his vivid character. Tracy Orswick gave birth in June 2010 to her kids Hope and Amber, who are twins. They experienced health issues as a result of their early birth. Hope was fortunate enough to heal without any major complications. Her sister did not have the same luck. The baby needed an emergency operation, and she would have several more during her lifetime. Tracy's husband, Julian, who also happens to be the twins' father, was always worried about his daughter. Still, surgery and medicine have advanced significantly, particularly in the UK. Amber's life was saved via a tracheotomy. The surgery was effective in keeping air from getting to her voice cords since she had bleeding in her lungs from birth. Amber could breathe on her own. Although this was the most significant challenge to be met in another life, Amber's just naturally emerged. Amber's tracheotomy may have gone well in terms of her breathing being corrected, but it left her speechless. When Tracy and Julian learned, they were horrified. Regarding Amber's condition, the physicians attempted to offer the new parents some optimism. In a few more years, Amber could have another surgery, which would improve her chances of ever being able to speak again. Though it seemed unlikely, they clung to the possibility. Despite her inability to talk, Amber was still able to appreciate other aspects of life. She still had options for what to do and who to spend time with. One thing that she loved especially was animals. Generally speaking, people would connect young females with kittens or puppies, given that these creatures appear to be adorable and docile. Of all the agricultural animals, horses are arguably the most favored. Have you ever considered taking up a hobby like riding horses? All ages find it appealing and young girls are no different. But donkeys were the animal that most caught Amber's attention. Tracy had heard recently that becoming friends with donkeys may be beneficial for kids with special needs. Some people might be surprised to learn that these animals are quite sensitive. They frequently have a kind disposition and are hospitable to outsiders. Their interactions with children best illustrate this. That's the exact reason Tracy and Julian made the decision one day to bring Amber to the sanctuary for donkeys. The parents had looked into the organization a little, but they had no idea how significant one of the rescues would end up being to their daughter. Amber had her parents at her sides when she initially entered the refuge. She was so excited that she was unable to conceal her smile. Amber was drawn in not long after she arrived. In the center of the barn stood a donkey. It was little and had basic gray fur, but it was the only one there, and Amber had never seen a donkey in person before. Like love at first sight, it was. Their initial encounter was all the more poignant because of the fact that Amber captivated Shocks just as much as he did. Witnesses to the heartwarming scenario, Julian and Tracy realized right away that Amber and Shock's adventure had just begun. Ever since that day, Amber's parents, Tracy and Julian, would often take Amber to the sanctuary in the hopes that their beloved daughter would benefit from the findings of donkey therapy research. They were happy to see her smiling more than ever since they wanted the best for her. The young child eagerly anticipated seeing her best buddy again soon. Unfortunately, Amber was born with cerebral palsy as a result of birth difficulties. This implied that she occasionally found it difficult to move her body precisely how she desired. Her folks would constantly be at her side, watching carefully to make sure her equilibrium was all right. But after getting to know Shocks, they were able to have greater faith in their daughter's safety. This is because Amber was able to move around in a regulated and safe way because to Shocks, donkeys are much smaller than horses, therefore allowing a youngster to ride one carries less risk. Occasionally, the sanctuary staff or even Amber's parents would help the young child get on the donkey. Everyone was delighted to see Amber ride as the frequency of trips to the refuge increased, Shocks as though it were instinctive. Amber gradually began to feel more assured about herself. The young woman was shifting. She no longer felt constrained by her physical state and was able to express herself in ways that were entirely new to her. Amber had ambition beyond her years, even if she was still young. She had a positive attitude all the time and eagerly anticipated each new day. Although her parents' and twin sisters' support played a major role in her happiness, Shocks, her closest buddy, was undoubtedly the most important reason. The ritual of taking Amber to the donkey sanctuary persisted for several months. The Orswicks had been there many times, but one day in particular would stick in their memory for a very sweet reason. Julian kept a tight eye on Amber and Shocks' exchange. Following all of the time and energy that he and his spouse had put into raising Amber, he was relieved to know that she was loved by someone else equally. Unbelievably, Amber spoke for the first time in her life after his daughter went up to the donkey and gave him a bear hug. Amber's voice could be heard. Amber's comments had an even greater impact on her parents than her actual speech, leaving a lasting impression. With a "I love you," Amber addressed Shocks. The donkey seemed to understand the words, as though they struck a chord in his chest. Shocks answered right away with his own noises, drawing everyone in the barn's attention. Shocks and Amber took comfort in enjoying others' company and depending on one another for assistance. Tracy was overcome with emotion and started crying as soon as she heard her daughter's soft voice. Being a mother can be a difficult journey, and although Tracy loved her baby, she suffered psychologically and physically from having to take care of her all the time. Nevertheless, Tracy seemed to gain a lot of power and experience, miracles she never would have believed possible as a result of this amazing relationship. Thinking back on Tracy characterized the moment when Amber spoke for the first time as really poignant. She was in disbelief that her daughter had at last discovered her voice. The narrative touched the hearts of everyone who heard it, this remarkable moment. Through the publication of Amber's Donkey, a book, Julian and Tracy memorialized the story of their daughter in Shocks in 2016. This touching tale showed the amazing power of love for an animal and gave a silent child the confidence to speak by showing how a little girl and a donkey mended each other's scarred pasts. Comment below with your favorite passage from the narrative. I would like to hear your opinions. With luck you enjoy this video. Kindly subscribe to our channel and share it. I'm grateful. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.